Welcome, everybody, to another episode of our podcast, The Pursuit of Everything, with Levi Bonner. Today, my guest is Jeff Scherr with our favorite HVAC company, Comfort Heating. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This is what we like to call Stogies with the Homies. The second episode.
The second annual Stogies with the Homies. I love it.
Yeah. So what we like to do here, dude, is just kind of talk about business, life, like whatever we're just gonna sit here and have a conversation, have a little fun. First off, tell us a little bit about your background, upbringings. I know you're from North Dakota, so we're gonna make fun of that a little bit.
That's fine. I learned every Norwegian joke I told when I was growing up changed to a North Dakota joke when I moved to Montana.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think vice versa. Montana, because we've got a bunch of family in North Dakota. I'm from Sydney, so you can throw a rock and you'll just hit.
Almost North Dakota, yeah. So our last stop before Montana was Dickinson. Yeah. My family, my dad going into the heating and cooling in the business. After the Army, my dad was going to college and this and that, number of different things, and ended up working at Montgomery Ward's. And in Bismarck, North Dakota, he was designing heating systems. And Montgomery Ward sold all the equipment and the furnaces and everything. So these guys would come in, and they would buy the furnaces and the ductwork and they'd go out and do the heating systems. Building was on the upswing in Bismarck, and my dad was like, I've been selling these systems and designing them. There's no reason I couldn't install them. So for whatever reason, he quits Montgomery Ward's, starts some Scherr's Heating and Cooling. He had no brakes, no tools, no nothing. And he just started putting heating systems into new homes.
That's super. Yeah. Haley, do you know what Montgomery Ward's is?
No.
Haley's young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Montgomery Ward's was big. Montgomery Ward's, Sears, Kmart. So he did well. And then the economy starts changing and building really just hit a end pass.
What year do you think this was?
This would have been about 1979, 1980. So my dad got out of it and went to school in Greeley, Colorado, and became a mud engineer for the oil rigs. So we moved from Bismarck to Dickinson for 4 years. I always want to forget. And he worked on the oil rigs, and then oil started sliding down. There were so many different changes.
How old were you?
We moved here when I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
Yep. I started school on Valentine's Day in my 7th grade year. So we moved back to moved two buildings, which was my mom and dad's dreaming place. My mom was a nurse. She started at Deaconess Hospital right away. And my dad actually got a job at Sears and was a window salesman. Absolutely hated it. It developed a relationship with a guy named Fred Estes, who owned a company called Hot Cold. Fred was a service guy into heating and cooling. Dad only knew sheet metal. So Dad and Fred started working together. And Fred taught Dad the service side of heating and air conditioning. And Fred passed away and left everything to my dad. And my dad started up Comfort Heating and Air Conditioning and was just by himself. In fact, the phone number for our company, the 5157, was my home phone growing up. And we used to have a notepad there. And during the day, especially in the summers, my brother and I would answer the phone and dispatch to our dad.
That's great. What year did it officially start?
We recognized the start of Comfort Heating and Air Conditioning as 1983.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we moved along. My brother wanted to be a pharmacist. I wanted to be in the Air Force. Tony got out of college, came back working for Dad. I was in the service for just under 10 years. Ended up with a bad hip. Didn't know what to do. Dad says, come out here until you figure it out. And I'm still figuring it out. Yeah.
We'll figure that out.
And then Tony and I ended up taking over the business in Y2K. Y2K was my brother and I's first year in business. So we've owned it now 24 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool because I still see your dad on job sites.
He's out every day.
Yeah.
He comes out to the shop. In fact, today he's out doing recycling.
That's great. We always joke, right? Because working with family is an interesting dynamic. So, because Cozy and I obviously have to work together, and we think it's pretty nice because we can have a disagreement, throw things at each other, yell at each other, and then 10 minutes later, be like, okay, where do we have lunch?
Yeah.
Because we can't hold grudges because you're working with your family.
We've had a number of family businesses come to us before. Like, how do you make it? His dad's business, and now it's my brother and I's business. Tony and I, over 24 years, have only had two really memorable fights. Other than that, they've been pretty minor. And the biggest thing between my brother and I is everything is equal. it was created on an equal footing. So neither one of us is the boss of the other. And I think that's the biggest problem in family businesses is there's always one that's the boss and then a family member or brother who is like the boss's brother and slacks and everybody gets pissed and he holds it against him or whatever. But Tony and I have been 100% 50-50 since the day it started. And we both have such different division of duties, but we talk about each other's part all the time.
Right.
So I think that's what makes it work for us the most.
And you guys have such a different dynamic skill set.
Yeah.
I'm sure you both could do the actual work. You're much more out in the public, and Tony hides in the shadows a little bit.
Yeah, he doesn't really like the public, but he does deal with the builders a lot more than I do.
Right.
He's very hands-on with the schedule, and he's in every new home. We're doing almost everything.
Yeah.
And he's extremely good with that. Tony's also good with finances, and I'm not. So I get an allowance from the business and an allowance from my wife, and so I have some money. But I'm terrible with it, honestly.
Yeah.
There's just different strengths, like you said, and above and beyond that, our wives work for us, and or with us, I should say, not work for us. And we also have a couple of the kids working on there.
Right.
So there's 3 full generations working in the business now.
That's fantastic. How was the transition from when your dad decided to sell and for him letting go of control? And because as entrepreneurs, we're all kind of control freaks.
Yeah, we are. And Dad, I think, was ready. He had said he was going to retire. I'd have to say Dad has retired 5 times now. Because he'll retire and then he'll come back and he's on board. I just can't do this. And so we get him a job or whatever. And he's, I really don't want to do this. I'm going to retire. So then, and then for a while, he actually wanted a work van. He wanted to install heating systems. And he did that well into his 60s.
Yeah.
And then he would retire. So anyway, right now he has a work truck. He does recycling on and on. But I think he was ready. He was tired of the responsibility. And where Tony and I have each other to bounce on and share stress or success or whatever, Dad didn't have it. He was on his own.
And I think that's a big deal because even when Cozy, we'd have a problem and Cozy will call me or I'll call her and we'll be like, oh, what do you think about this? And handle it like this.
Yeah.
And then whoever problem it is,
Yeah.
works through it
Yes.
in their head while they're talking.
Yes.
Like sometimes Cozy will call me on a contract and she'll just have to talk it through.
Yeah.
And she'll come up with the answer on her own. I won't even have to say anything.
Tony and I are like that a lot during the day. We seem to have our Dr. Pepper breaks, our 10, 2, and 4. Typically, we are at the shop. We both got a bunch of stuff going on. We get in the car about the same time. Usually around 10:30 or so, we'll call each other, see what's going on. And then usually in the afternoon, and then usually on our way home. And we talk at work, but sometimes it's just too busy to even talk at work. And it's just easy on the phone when you're driving.
Yeah, we do that a lot too. Hey, what are you doing? Especially now that we're doing something like like on our walks, we'll fix problems and work through them.
But we try and keep it so that we're not doing it 24/7. Like when my dad owned the business, he was like, at work, I want you guys to call me Tom. I don't really want to be Dad. And at home, I want to be Dad, but I don't want to be Tom.
Right.
Because I don't want to bring that here all the time.
Yeah.
And so I have a wife and a daughter both living with me who are at work. And sometimes I just have to say, girls, this is something we can totally deal with tomorrow. It's 5:30. Let's have dinner.
Yeah.
Let's just let it go.
It's hard to separate.
It is hard to separate because you do live it. And for me, I'll answer questions anywhere. If my phone rings while I'm in Mexico, I'll go answer it on the beach.
I know, so I call you all the time. And what's funny is we're past a decade old now in our business, and we've never used a different agency company.
I'm very appreciative.
Yeah, you guys have taken care of us. How many employees do you guys have at any given time?
Right now, we've been averaging about 28. And we've got a new young kid starting on Monday. We hired a new service tech that started this last Monday. So we've got a young guy that worked with us. Rapple J School District called me up and they were like, hey, we've got this really good kid. He's a senior and he wants to do heating and cooling, but there is no heating and cooling businesses in Rapple J.
Right.
Hey, can he work with you? This kid got up every morning, every Wednesday from October all the way up until he graduated and never missed a day, showed up for work and just absolutely loves it. So he's going to be starting to work this summer. And then I think he wants to go to HVAC school. I told him, hey, we'll cover your school.
Right.
You just pay for books and a place to live. And you owe us 5 years after you're done.
Right.
And So it's really fantastic. Yeah.
Because we're both on the Homeowners Association board.
Yeah.
And we're also on the task force to try to get more younger people into the trades because there's such a lack of young kids going into the trades that we absolutely need that.
I don't think that they all know it's there. You grow up and you're in your house, and I always use summer because summer's when you're the most bored. You're never home, or you're always home, or you went to the pool or whatever. But you have a heating and air conditioning guy come into the house, or a carpet guy, or a plumber, or whatever, and you didn't ever really notice what they did. Especially by the time it makes sense in high school, you didn't pay attention to anybody coming in your house.
Right.
And there's no focus on it in high school. Your counselor sessions are always college or this or that. And it's if they would just take a little bit of time and talk to kids and just say, hey, there's a whole world out there. Do you want to drive big trucks? Do you want to drive tractors? Do you want to dig in the dirt? Do you want to do like electricity or whatever? Because there's millions of careers that you can do literally and make a huge living without having to go to college. And I'm not against college. I have a daughter with a college degree. My youngest is going to school for business, and my middle one, she's just, no, I'm just going to work.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah. And I think like our age group, we've talked about this before on here, is our age group was like, you have to go to college or you like go to the military route, which I think is fantastic as well. It was like, be an accountant, be a doctor. It was like, it pushed us away from the trades and the whole theory on indoctrinating to that school mindset. But I think now, the new gold rush is going to be in the trades.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of my texts have already been hinting that the world is wide open to them. And if we want to keep up, we're going to have to pay for them.
Absolutely.
And that's great. I'm doing that. But it's the customer that's going to pay more too. These are not blue collar workers. In this quick hurry, they're going to be gold collar workers.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, that's a really great way to put it.
Do you notice a shortage of, if you're hiring, is it hard to find somebody because of that go to college kind of aspect of it? Or do you see it changing a little bit?
There is some of that out there. But people, and I hate to get into the generational thing, but it's like Gen X is working. The millennials are working, but they do different work. Now, the ones that are younger, they're all entering the trades. I have a gap in that age. I have younger ones and I have older ones, but I have nothing in the middle.
Interesting.
And the younger ones are really the ones that are applying for the jobs, are asking the questions of the trade schools, are doing that. So if I hit Indeed or something like that, I'm not finding them. Unless you're stealing them from other shops or they happen to come in from another shop. Yeah, it's a difficult thing. It's also that same generation that's missing as the one that DoorDashes the most and does this and does that. There's just a different mentality there also.
Right, absolutely. And I'm guessing the military played a big role this with you, is what makes you, and tell me, a driven person? Like watching your dad, growing up working, running a business, what would you describe that kind of pushes you guys in that forward direction?
There's a couple things. One is when Tony and I started the business, we made every single mistake that you could make wrong in the business. And we went from having a nice wage and taking care of our families to being dead broke overnight because of things that we thought we were doing right and we did wrong. And so then we worked so hard to get out of debt and to build a business. Now my motivation is my family, my girls, my legacy, and same with Tony, taking care of our folks. But I have all those people at the shop. I know their families. I know them. And I want to make sure that every single person who wears a comfort heating and air conditioning shirt is taken care of, can afford a new truck, can afford to buy a house, or what have you. I want them to be comfortable for as long as they choose to grace us, honestly, with their loyalty. Because that's all that I can do is do the best. So my motivation is the whole comfort heating family, not just the Scherr family, but every single one of them. Some guys and girls.
As a business owner, that burden is heavy.
It is very heavy.
Like when we were looking at downturn a year and a half ago, like that, we have to make decisions. I talk about it a lot. Like even my subs are part of the Infinity family.
Yes.
That's when we developed the affordable homes and that kind of stuff to keep ourselves going, because we know that they have families and they've got to take care of as well. So just shutting down isn't an option. We've got to keep people pushing.
You do, and I really worry about that. One of the things that Tony and I have always prided ourselves on is that in all the years that we've been in business, we have never had to do a layoff.
That's right.
People have lost their jobs, But usually that's a fault of their selves, but we have never had to do a layoff. Sometimes it hurts because we have created such a large customer base that sometimes when it's really busy, it hurts.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're trying to take care of them. But when you're slow, you're not as slow as the next guy because you have this large customer base you've been taking care of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What kind of market? Because you do the new construction, I bet you if I were to guess, I bet you're 80%.
Tony and I have tried to figure that out from time to time. I would say realistically, it's in the 60s of new homes and builds.
Okay.
There's a lot of heating companies, and very few of them want to do new construction.
Because we're in the house.
Yeah. So that's part of it. Honestly, when you go to business coaches, all of us has taken those classes, and we've got people in our careers that really tell you where the money is. Honestly, in our business, new construction is not necessarily the best choice. It's almost like the Costco concept. You have to do a tremendous amount of it and build in such a great efficiency that you can actually make money at it.
Sure.
Because you could make more money replacing a furnace than when you first installed it.
Sure.
So it's the pure retrofit service market that is the cash cow, I guess you would say. But yeah, so we worked very hard. And Tony and I started in new construction. I still carry my tools. And in fact, I think last summer we caught up on that one house.
Yeah.
Or something. But anyway.
I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
You started, Mike?
I can still do it with only 2 stitches a day.
I'm gonna throw a curveball. So you said when you guys first started, you made some mistakes and went downhill for a hot second. What did you do different than what your dad was doing at that time that kind of caused that failure? Plus, we talk about it a lot up to where normally like a second generation business and maybe like the Sunstone do as well.
Statistically, it's best.
Statistically, yes. And part of that is they're living, they're trying to live at the level that their previous generation was at. They're already there. They've worked, they've saved, they've done everything. They've got to that point. When you start the business, like, I'll use a specific example. There was a wholesaler of ours that has this big buying show, and they call it the Northwest Adventure. And you get out there and they got all this. It's a big trade show. It's like a home show of just HVAC and plumbing stuff. And Norwesco was a duct manufacturer, and they had this price. You couldn't understand how low this price was. So Tony and I literally purchased $450,000 worth of ductwork. Problem is, we thought the ductwork was, as we went into the store, they basically keep a running tally of the 6-inch pipe or the duct or whatever we bought. That wasn't the case. We literally, about 2.5 weeks later, had 2 semis show up to our shop and unload $450,000 worth of sheet metal and give us an invoice. We did not have $450,000 to pay that. We didn't understand discounting. The biggest problem that my brother and I had was trying to make the transition from craftsman to businessman. We didn't know what a P&L was. We didn't know what a balance sheet was. We didn't know how to shop this or shop that. We just went on like we were going on. That wasn't the thing. And also controlling the guys, because a lot of the employees at that time had been there longer than we had and had been working for Dad and had very strong personalities. And here we had $450,000 worth of ductwork sitting at the shop, and they were still going to the supplier and picking it up. And it took a while for us to basically take them out behind the corn shed and say, you will pull ductwork from the shop.
Probably easier. They probably loaded it for them.
Absolutely, it was easier.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was a growing up factor, honestly, of having the employees at that time listen to us.
Right.
And whether it was a respect factor or whatever, and respect was earned later, but it was, we are the bosses.
Right.
Dad isn't. And we know you work for Tom, but this company is Comfort Heating LLC. He worked for Comfort Heating Inc. Your paycheck comes from another place now, and you will comply. And it went on and on until about our 3rd year in business. We had 47 employees, and we were just hemorrhaging. And we went and we created an employee manual. We worked with the lawyers on just before Thanksgiving. We walked in, we said, okay, here's the book. On January 3rd, you will either turn in a signed employee manual and say that you will comply with everything, or pack up and leave. And on January 3rd, we lost half of our shop.
Oh, really?
Yes. Including both of our office personnel, which was terrible because that day was payroll. And to that point, Tony and I had never run payroll. It was a little crazy. But all of a sudden, with less people by half, within 2 weeks, you could feel the difference. It just,
Right, you're creating the culture there.
yeah. So it took so many different things to grow up and to understand money and to understand that business is not the same as craftsman. I had a dentist tell me one time, we were talking and he was asking me some business questions one time. And he says, I went to all this medical school. I learned how to be the greatest doctor in the world. And he said, most of the dentists that graduate school go into business for themselves or into a business.
Yeah.
And he said, not once out of all those years did we ever have a business course.
Yeah.
And he said, all of a sudden I got an office with hygienists and office people and workman's comp and insurance. And he says, I was totally lost. And
They say that doctors are the worst.
Yeah.
Dentist doctors, because they think they know everything.
Yes.
They've got all the schooling, but
Yes.
they don't know anything.
there's this whole other aspect to their business that I
Right.
never learned.
So for me, because now I've got kids that are old enough that, talking about coming to work for us and stuff like that. And I'm the first generation, and I grew the business and made those mistakes as I was small.
Yes.
Right. The mistakes weren't they weren't this, but they weren't
Yeah.
the needle that much.
Yes.
So it's a huge difference between taking something over that's already successful. When you're at that point when you've got $400,000 worth of sheetrock or sheet metal, all these employees, and you were broke. What was the moment that you were like, the aha moment? Okay, the self-insurance. Like, I think we got this. I think we're going to be okay.
For us, it was crazy. We had a financial advisor guy, and it's a long story. But anyway, we walked into a meeting one day, and he looked at us square in the eyes, and he says, okay, boys, he says, it's time to give it up. He says, you can go bankrupt. We'll get you back on foot. Tom, we'll do what we can to take care of you. Boys, you're going to go bankrupt. We're going to sell these assets. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And you're young enough to start over and on. And Tony and I, we called BS. And we just said no. And we literally got up and walked out of that meeting and divorced ourselves from him, his accountant, his banker. We went and pleaded at First Interstate Bank to take us on. And Tony and I sat in that office and said, we are not going to let this company fail. We are not going to be broke, and we're going to take care of all of our employees. And we just started on the phone call with all of our suppliers. Hang with us. We're going to pay you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We started learning about pricing, realizing that doing a job that cost you $300 was not a good job to do.
Right.
You're not supposed to do jobs for negative. And anyway, at that point that meeting was the most brutal thing in the world, and seeing that defeat in Dad's face.
Right.
And I was like, yeah.
Right.
Did your dad try to give you any advice for that, or did he?
He did, but Dad did a lot of good things, but I think even then, sometimes he just let things go with the flow. And it was easier. It was a smaller company. I remember we could run our schedule on a notebook page. We had 2 service techs, and I think half the time those guys ran over the top of them. So he had money coming in and money going out, and it was all good. But I think maybe some of that really caught up by the time Tony and I took it over. So we saved him and killed us, but then it came around. And
Yeah.
that one meeting when that guy told us you're giving up, it's no.
Right.
No.
And what's funny is now we're live on TikTok and Instagram or whatever the hell we're on. The social media age makes everything look instant. Oh, you had that meeting, and 2 weeks later, like, you guys are fine. Like, how long did it take for you guys to get yourself out of that hole and really get it back on the right
To
path?
get completely out of the hole to a 0 point took about 8 years. And then to become, in a way, debt-free where we're operating more safely took about another 5 years.
Right.
So 13 to 14 years of every single day looking at it. And it hits because every so often a page of the past comes out. We'll clean out a file and we'll see something. Recently, we sold a van. I think it was last summer or the summer before. We sold this van for $500. It had a $750,000 lien on it from First Interstate Bank. But it was like, at that point, it was like our houses, our vehicles, our shop, everything in the world had a lien on it.
Yep.
2 or 3 deep. And little by little, it's all clear. Now we operate on Friday afternoon. We don't owe anybody anything. Every Friday, we're at a 0 point. And in fact, our wholesalers typically owe us more on a daily basis than we owe them, because something will happen, you'll return some parts and you'll build up a $50,000 or $60,000 credit. They hate it.
Right.
But the way Tony and I look at it is we've got $60,000 to buy stuff before we're into our account, realistically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a much different lifestyle.
Right. Because, on the internet, you have 20-year-olds standing by private jets. And
Yes.
they don't realize the reason I asked that question is the time that it takes
Yes.
to build a company that is substantial.
And it's a 24-hour-a-day process. It's sitting there at 2:00 in the morning in a cold sweat, thinking about something, getting up to write it down so that you could talk to Tony the next morning.
Right.
And that's where I'm glad that I have my brother going back to the family business, because we have been a united front all over the world.
Absolutely. And I love watching how you guys are always looking at for new products, new ways to run your company. How do you guys approach like your personal development, like the company getting new products and keeping up with the newest and greatest and stuff like that?
That's my job. That's one of those things that Tony doesn't touch on. As we move along, I guess a lot of it is a passion for the customer, because there was a point in time where I was a salesperson. I keep hitting my mic, I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine.
And I felt like I was a salesperson. Well, one day I was like, I'm not selling anything, realistically. Every single person that comes to me has a problem. If you have a house that you want to sell, but you got to have a heating and cooling system to do it. I got the tools. A person calls me up, they don't have any heat, it's 50 below zero. What are we going to do? I got a tool. My kids got asthma, I got a tool. I got a cold room, like this room. Here we are smoking cigars in the middle of an office.
Right.
And we got an exhaust system and this little overeater here and stuff. So we're able to do that because you guys aren't choking. So that's what I mean, is finding things that make our customer lives better.
Right. You're solving problems.
I'm solving problems. Right. And that's when we became extremely passionate. And so we're always on the hunt for that one thing that, one, has a really good price point, but two, really does a good job.
Absolutely. You guys do a great job. Because we're constantly dealing with the city and the new codes and that kind of stuff. You guys are always on top of it. You're always trying to step ahead of those issues when we get to them.
We try our very best.
And that's a delicate balance.
It is a delicate balance, because everybody on the other side, our builders, all want to make money at the end of the day too. You're building a house to make money. And so if all the guys like us, subs and whatever, keep raising our prices without adding value, it does nothing.
Right.
And so Tony and I have always said, if we are going to raise a price, there has to be a value attached. It can't just be $150 because we didn't feel like we made enough. Every time there is a price increase, there's a little something better. A little better furnace, a little better thermostat, a little better filtration, quieter exhaust fans, whatever.
Yeah.
So
I want to step back and maybe go more into the business part. Levi, you touched on it about building a culture, right? So first of all, you guys are the best at warranty for us, to where, right, I know if I have to call you for a warranty issue, I don't have to call you back again to make sure somebody got over there.
Yeah.
But also your employees, when they're there, when they're going into people's homes, you have to make sure that they have the same like integrity, values, and stuff that you do. Talk about the culture a little bit and how you build that.
a lot of that comes from our dad. And one is we promised ourselves, our employees, and our customers that we're not going to beat around the bush. If we screwed up, plain and simple, we're human and we're going to screw up, and we have screwed up, and we take care of it. That keeps the person around the next day. You've got to own what you did. You got to be proud of the best job you did, and you've got to fix any mistakes that you made. So at the shop, we've tried to empower all the guys and gals in the office. We're like, you know what you're doing. You don't always have to ask permission to get it done. If you're in a customer's home and you see something we did wrong 6 months prior, fix it. Don't charge them, just fix it. And I think that empowerment of the people have also made them much more willing, and they know they're not going to get their butt chewed because they did something. I want them to do that. The other thing is my brother and I do not like to be argumentative, especially for, like the kids. You know, you walk in, you saw that spilled, and you ask who spilled it, and everybody's not me. Somebody did it. Okay, Tony and I are at the point, even with the guys, anybody at the company is allowed to say, we did it. And we'll clean it up.
And that's really prevalent in new construction, right?
It is.
Like you go to a house, the plumber's the HVAC guys, and no, that's the electrician's job. You guys have always been great with like, hey, the plumber needs to do this, and then we can do. It's never like a finger pointing.
No, I don't think it serves any purpose, and it just creates stress. There's enough stress out there, and I want customers to feel comfortable coming back to us time and time again. We have customers that literally go back to my dad's business.
Sure.
We have some people we have been taking care of that were in their 30s and now are in their 80s. Of course, it's not that long, but it's been 41 years. There literally is that. We've had some builders since I was in high school.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, and part of it is treating everybody with respect. Everybody has their zone at the shop, and we come in the morning, we try and be friendly. We have a little soda machine, they grab some pop out. I didn't realize how big it was just for letting a guy grab a soda, having a clean bathroom that they can go into, that they don't have to clean. It's a big little thing. We provide uniforms. We hired a couple guys from Oregon, and they were barely taking anything. We're like, guys, load up shirts, jackets, vests, hats. And they're like, we can't afford this. I said, what do you mean you can't afford it? Every place that they'd ever worked for, they had to pay for their uniform.
Oh,
give me a break. I want you to put comfort heating on it.
That's the pride.
Don't rack up your shirt. I don't want you wearing a Dallas Cowboy shirt. I want you to wear a comfort heating shirt.
Absolutely. You guys have great retention though. In the 12 years that I've been in business, there's a lot of the same guys that are on the job that when I first started.
Yeah. We have one that we have two that are over 25. And then we have some in the 20s and the 15s and 5s and stuff. But yeah, we don't have a lot of turnover. We try our best. We have health insurance and we have vision and dental. We want them to use it. We do some vacations. I know our vans aren't the best, but at the same time, they're not meant to be comfortable. They're to drive from the shop to the job.
Right. Yeah, and I'll tell you, so for me, I've talked about this quite a bit because I'm not a construction guy. I didn't start as a framer or a trim guy. Me starting, I was able to call Tony and you and ask questions.
Yeah.
And you were always very, very nice. And because there was never any ego in it for me. I didn't pretend like I know everything.
Yeah.
And it's just that communication that we have all had so well over the last decade. That's made a lot of stuff work.
We've done so many things. We had one builder one time that was so far behind on bills. And Tony and I had a meeting and we decided at this point, we had two choices. One is we can go slaughter. We can go to court. We get all our money, foreclose on their houses and do this and do that. Or we can work out something. We did it 15 years ago when we could least afford it.
Right. But I'm sure that builder will never use anybody else.
We're still with them.
Yeah.
And so there's little things like that and I think our guys have seen that too. We tell they'll come in and plumber so and builder so and it's nice. It's their product. Let's just work with them. Just be friendly. I learned a long time ago that you can very nicely tell someone to take a hike.
Yeah.
You can make them feel as small as an ant and never once say a harsh word or anything. But it takes less time and effort just to smile and say, yeah, we'll take care of it.
Absolutely. And just at the end of the day, you're a better person.
That's it.
We have a ton of questions from the live. I just wanted to
Absolutely.
answer to all of
For
those.
sure.
Okay, Tony, I have a few for you. You're going to be on the hot seat. How long does it take to become a certified HVAC tech?
In the service world, most of the schools are 2 years.
Okay.
And they do have a lot of trade schools. In the sheet metal side, which I came through, we teach on the job.
Okay. What kind of education is required to start?
Being able to read. It's a little bit of math. Sheet metal wise, we teach you. So any education level is really good. The service school is a 2-year college. I'm sure they're going to have you do some math and some English and some stuff like that. But some math.
Can you start on the sheet metal side and then move into service without going to?
You can, and in fact, what we've done recently is we found it's a really neat course, and some people might even want to try it themselves. It's in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, and it's called the Ultimate Technical Academy, Technician Academy. And these guys are great. We've taken Lauren and Garrett. They've been installing air conditioners for quite a while, but how do we move them to the next step? So we sent them to this school. They learned everything in 1 week. And it was so amazing. And they have different modules and stuff. So I would say if they're really service inclined, get into a company, maybe tell them you're looking at the service. And as you develop maybe through the sheet metal side of things, then companies like me are willing to send people to those technical schools and get them involved. Because if you learn sheet metal and service, you are totally marketable anywhere.
Yeah.
So
So how does that tie into like the apprenticeship? Some of the questions were, is an apprenticeship necessary or is it recommended or required?
I think it's necessary. Like this young kid from high school that's going to be starting. So he worked with us on Wednesdays and he learned a lot. And so literally starting next week, he is going to go out every day, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and he's going to install systems and he's going to learn everything about the sheet metal side. Then when he goes to school, he's going to be learning the service side. They complement each other because like even this exhaust system, for instance, that we put in, the sheet metal side would be the ductwork sizing, the machine selection, on and on. The service side might be the wiring on. But if you could do it all yourself, you're that much more marketable and worth more to an employer. I pay based upon a skill set and an attitude rather than how much time you've been with me. So the more things that I could put you on, the more jobs we could put you on, the more valuable you are. So learning one and moving into the other is absolutely a great idea.
You elaborate, I guess, on the attitude part, because it sounds like we're getting questions from people looking to get into your industry, but attitude's a big thing.
That's why Larry doesn't get paid very much, because
Honestly, yeah. There are guys that we have literally parted ways with in 2 weeks. And part of it is you got to be willing to show up and do your job and not be a pot stirrer. We're going to listen to whatever you have, but we've also over 40 years developed a way of doing things.
Yeah.
And we learn new things by guys that are coming in and everything. So the biggest attitude is showing up to work and be willing to work and realize that you're going to get dirty. You're going to cut yourself. You're going to run into grouchy customers. You're going to run into some houses that aren't so clean. It's our job. And those aren't permanent. And so, yeah, you're in a dirty house today, but then you get 2 weeks of clean houses. Attitude is everything. When you come into me and you have a good attitude and you smile and you're not creating problems and you bring up suggestions and you take care of our customers, I'm totally into you because it's a circle. I do estimates all day long and it does do me no good to get a job if my installers are going to go in there and break that relationship. So, customer makes a phone call, which is the marketing folks that got us out there or previous relationships. I go out, I give them options, I give them a price, they accept it. The installer's got to take care of it. Right and simple.
it goes along on my side then too, because we're building someone's home where they're going to have their family raise their kids.
Yes.
And they walk into their house and the trades are in there and Jeff's guys are working in there. And if Jeff's guys are pleasant, and they're like, oh my God, they'll call me and be like, we just met the HVAC guys and they're fantastic. They're nice. They're doing a great job. They don't know what they're doing.
That's it. If they're scary looking and you're cussing right loud, slamming car doors and yelling at everybody, that doesn't do any good.
Right.
No.
No, yeah,
Great question.
they're all great questions coming in. The last one was people were asking, what are the career advancement opportunities? Somebody was just asking experience, training, how can they become supervisors, start their own businesses, stuff like that.
I have trained a lot of competitors. Honestly. And it's just the way it goes. But this is the thing. In a way, there's room for an advancement, and in a way, there's not, as far as the type. We have a service tech that's been with us for 26 years. He's absolutely trusted. He knows he's trusted. We put him on some of the most delicate jobs. He has some of the best knowledge base, and we pay him extremely well and take care of him in any way, shape we can. Yes, we can call him a senior technician, but they are so individualized as to what they do that they're really not in charge of someone. And as a team, the service guys all meet over here, the sheet metal guys over there, and we discuss things in the morning. One guy will teach another person or whatever. So you gain a role by being there. But at our company, we don't really have titles that you move up on. Supervisory, I think a lot of that actually comes from the other employees. They have certain trusted guys that they're willing to go to and ask the questions and know that they're going to get a decent answer that benefits the company and that employee without getting smart ass answer or whatever. Even on the union side, which we're not a union company, which is no problem with it. Even in the union company, you basically are apprentice, journeyman, master. And there are some different supervisory roles, but for the most part, what we do, you're on your own and you gain that respect and that advancement through your attitude.
I also imagine you gain more salary with the better knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, being self-centric, you said you're alone, right? I think there's two guys on one of our jobs.
Sometimes there's two, but
Most
most
of the one, right? You got to be self-motivated and go out there and get the job done.
And that's a big part of it. The guys at the shop know who trusted guys are, and they will go to them and ask questions because they don't necessarily want to come and ask me or Tony or whatever because they're like, hey, I don't want them to know I didn't know this. But there's other guys that if you go and ask them a question, they're going to make you feel like an ant,
Right.
you know? And there's other guys that are always willing to help you. And those are the guys that we trust the same. And we go to them and they are promoted and taken care of in other ways other than the title. Hopefully that makes sense.
And that's the culture.
Yeah,
Right.
and well, you both talked about too, because you just talked about going from the blue collar to the gold collar. So I would imagine that's probably where that question came from. Why and how would they end up being the gold collar?
Guys that have the ability to learn to, maybe they're sitting at home and instead of doing TikTok, they're learning. I have one guy that comes in with new stuff all the time. He's kind of been doing a little research last night on such and such refrigerant. I think it's going to be the real deal for the company. Or, hey, I was looking at this tool. You attach it to a ladder and you can haul stuff right up onto the roof and you don't have. Those guys are the ones that are going that little extra mile. And there's other guys that literally show up, put in their hours and leave. They don't create any problems. But they're not going an extra mile and they're not going to give us anything extra. And they're just happy with the status quo. That's not a bad employee, but they're not, in a way, a supervisor.
And being a lifelong learner to me is key to that, right? Because a lot of times people think, oh, I'm done with high school or I'm done with trade school or college. Now I'm never going to read a book. And
Right.
we preach lifelong learning to be like I'm taking an accounting class and all of that kind of stuff. Because if you're not going forward, you're going back.
Absolutely. My grandfather, my mom's dad, told me one time that if you wake up and you didn't learn at least something in that day, it was a waste of a day. And he said, you only got something. He said, why waste anything?
Right.
And I've always listened to this guy. He had very limited education. I think he was out of school 6th grade. That's what I had, the 6th grade graduations. But he was so smart.
Right.
God, he was smart. And so every day we try to learn a little something.
Absolutely. But the worst thing in our industry that I despise, we hear it all the time. This is how we've always done it.
This is how we've always done it. And it's, okay, you've always done it that way. But look, it's changing. There's different framing methods. There's different materials. There's new laws. The laws change all the time. Not just local, state, whatever, but federal. We're getting hit with a whole new set of refrigerants. Most of these new refrigerants that are going to hit us next year are flammable. You just can't throw a torch on these new air conditioners.
Right.
You're going to have fire.
We've always used bad gas.
We've always used bad gas. So you're going to have to learn how to use a compression fit now. You know. So yes.
So to me, that's like a real pet peeve of mine, just because I want to be innovative. I want to be front runner in the industry.
Or even like when we deal with contractors, you have supervisors and you have guys that are running your jobs. From time to time, you switch. All builders, all of a sudden, you've got this guy that you've been dealing with forever and you developed a culture with him and you did this, and then for whatever reason, that person is gone and now you got a new person. What they're telling you isn't wrong, but that's the worst thing in the world to say is, so always let me do it this way. Great. But starting today, we're going to do it this way. And if it didn't create a problem and it didn't cost you any money or time, what's the argument?
And that kind of goes back to culture too, because we had that turnover recently. So we hired from within and promoted.
Yeah.
And so that we could teach them and have them work with you directly, how you guys do it right. And then that way, it's not that, oh, I've been in this industry for 20 years and this is how it's always done.
And a lot of those guys that are really good, the effective job supervisors, go to the subs and say, how have you been doing this?
That's how I learned.
And then they go and figure it out, because if all of a sudden they come in like they know everything, they're just going to create a counterculture and nobody wants to work with them
And
anymore.
you're dealing with a bunch of dudes and testosterone and ego, and
That's it.
it's interesting.
Pretty soon hammers are flying and yeah.
A good fight every now and then.
A good fight from time to time. If we tell the guys if it's going to happen, it has to happen off the job site on the other side of the gate at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Do what you
Absolutely.
We were just talking about that yesterday about meeting to fight.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Well, these people have questions for you.
Yes.
How do you manage the complexities of coordinating trades and subcontractors within home development?
This is absolutely my favorite thing on the planet to do. I trying to teach our project manager, and Cozy always laughs at me because I get giddy when I'm out on jobs. Like, I'm going to be like Jeff's dad. Like, I'll be 70 years old going to job sites and sit because I learned, because I'm not a construction guy. Like, I didn't grow up in construction. So I would call, okay, framing is done. Now it's time for the mechanicals to go in. So HVAC normally goes in first. So I would call Tony or Jeff and be, okay, so tell me the time. Tell me when you want the plumbers to start. Tell me how you work most effective. Because our job as a project manager is to get the job done in as best as possible in the fastest amount of time. Because my job is to get them the tools and have all the supplies on site, stuff like that, so they can get in there and be effective, because then they're more profitable.
Yes.
Because again, the profit margin in new construction is really low for these guys. If they have to keep coming back and making trips, then they're not going to love you as a contractor, because they're probably
Most houses, 2 return trips and we broke even. It can be that costly.
right.
Because when you look at it like this, if I have a service technician who has to run up to your house and fire up a furnace that the other guy didn't do when he was there, not only are we paying him to go up and fire that furnace, but he's missing the opportunity to do another service call that he should have been on. So in a way, it's double off.
And I know some other contractors will put all the trades into one time. We don't normally like to do that because then there's a bunch of mistakes that are made. Guys get cranky working on
Yeah,
it.
they step on each other.
They don't play well together.
No, for the most part, you can have certain trades work together and other ones that don't. But when you stack the houses full, you're tripping on things. You can't move your ladders around.
Right.
It's
Instead of fighting each other.
yeah, a little bit of fighting, arguing, grouchiness. What happens?
Or they disappear. And then,
Or that's what they'll do. They'll get in their van and they'll just leave.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's what it is.
So I guess to elaborate on the question that Haley had
Right.
from the gram or wherever she is,
Yeah.
is I think one of your best traits as a project manager is that you do care that these guys are profitable, right? Levi's trying to teach our project manager like, hey,
Yes.
your job is to make sure these guys have what they need so they're profitable.
and I asked, right off the bat, I did it for the 8 years that I was managing jobs, is I would call and have those conversations daily. Like, how can I make it better? What do you, or if I came across a problem, I would call and they're like, how do you want to handle this? I'm like, you tell me. You're going to have to warranty this. You tell me how the best way is going to have to be. That open line of communication with your subcontractors is vital. The other thing too is I haven't had any turnover with our mechanicals. We've used the same HVAC company. We've used the same plumber since day one. They work well together. Jason, our plumber, is a pain in the ass. I'm sure we'll have him on here one time. I love him to death. But
We get along. My brother, him, no.
yeah, but these guys, they work together. We do a lot of the same house plans. A lot of times they don't even need to call. But having that open line of communication and not having an ego, I think, is super, super important.
And one of the things that makes a good builder for us is one that realizes that, but also realizes this as a subcontractor, we can't make a living for 28 guys off of your homes. You don't build enough for me to keep 28 guys employed.
Right.
So I have to have a number of builders. There are builders who understand that and allow us to move, realizing that we're going to take care of you. And at the same time, we can triage it too. They've got builders that create big problems for us. They're not going to be on the same priority list as those who consistently are trying to take care of us. We're going to make sure we show up right then and there.
Yeah.
And other builders are going to get taken care of, just maybe not quite as fast.
Right.
And also the customers. You've had homeowners that literally create problems for you out of the blue for no reason whatsoever. And yes, you did everything you can to take care of them, but there's a point in time where you just got to say, okay, I can't come over this week.
The other thing we do is we pay on time. That helps. That goes a long way because they've got overhead. You know, that's me being a businessman and not just. There's a difference between being, like Jeff said, like he was a technician first, and there's a switch from being a technician to being a businessman.
Yep.
Knowing that your subcontractors have overhead and bills to pay themselves, you have to be empathetic with that and take care of it.
If the builder pays on time, we can discount. And that discount can get passed. If I can save 2.5% or 3% on all my materials because I can pay by a certain date,
Right.
that makes my job more profitable.
Right.
And so I don't have to raise my price.
We're a team. I think of us as a team, right?
Yeah,
Like we're just one big family. You know, we take care of each other because warranty is the biggest problem that we have in construction. And these guys are fantastic. Like when you have a sub that you call and they're like, yeah, we'll get there, and then we set up time and then they don't show up. It just makes us all look dumb.
It does. The homeowners will get upset. They're not going to give a referral.
Absolutely.
Because they got someone moving in from out of town and they're like, hey, who'd you build in your house?
Right.
Wow, Levi. But he really wasn't that good. I wouldn't recommend him.
Right.
You don't want that.
No.
You know,
No.
one bad referral just literally lost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, it wants to you guys business too, right? So it's
And all turn goes down.
Yeah.
We all try to be profitable together.
How
My
do
fault.
you both mitigate all the risks that are associated with the development projects?
I'll let you start.
How do we mitigate the risks?
It goes back to, it sounds a lot like financial planning.
Yeah.
There is that. You have to be willing to, or you have to have enough money to purchase your products and to put it in and to pay your employees. That's the first thing. And your culture is going to be important, and that's going to mitigate most risk. If you've got that job the next day, you're not worried, and you work and you feel good. My guys know, and they can see down the street and feel confident because of what we've done, that there isn't a risk that we're going to lose that builder, but that every single house down that street is ours. And so it's just being honest and truthful and passionate about what you do. That mitigates your risk. The finances and everything else flow out of that.
Our risk is a little more like speculative, right? Because you're building spec houses. And when I first started, I could only build a couple specs because I'm just getting to go on the bank. But started so we did a lot of our building on pre-sold homes.
Yeah.
So that took a lot of risk out because the volume that we wanted to do, we pre-sold. So now, a little over a decade into it, we're able to do more spec homes and less pre-solds because they're a lot more work. But Cozy and I do extensive market research, knowing the facts, knowing what's selling, knowing what floor plans that you like. So now we're in 3 different markets in Montana. What's selling in Bozeman is completely different than what's selling in Billings.
Absolutely.
Going into a market and just having the ego where this plan sells a lot in Billings isn't. We just saw a builder do that recently. That they built what worked there, but it doesn't work here. You have to do your research, do your due diligence, and get with great subcontractors. You use great products because your profit margin shrinks quite dramatically if you have to keep going back for warranty work and stuff like that.
It is such a flow. The amount of people that are involved in building one home. You look at all the raw materials that are made, then they're sent to a factory, they're put together into a product, nails, lumber, furnaces, air conditioners, lighting products, on and on. There is hundreds of thousands of people literally involved in one home.
And not perfect products.
And it's not
number that curves.
Yeah.
It's split.
I mean, by the time it gets to Billings, Montana for Comfort Heating to install, or Hertz Plumbing, or you, or whatever, there's been so many hands on this that you have to have faith in the system. And that's where COVID was tough because all of a sudden stuff didn't show up. But you had to be able to and so a lot of that is just, that's where when you first start out with some of those mistakes we made when we started, you weren't ready for that. And you didn't know how to read.
I also don't. I'm very price conscious. Like I know the cost of everything, and but I also don't skimp on. There's obviously cheaper HVAC units, right? But we don't. But we don't go and shop it and just to say $200.
Yeah.
That to me, that's not worth the value.
I think, and we're the same way. There is lesser costing furnaces, lesser costing ductwork, on and on. And we've noticed differences. 26 gauge steel is 26 gauge steel, but yet it's not. You put in brand A's ductwork and you don't get popping. You put in this other one and you hear this popping all the time. And if it needs to stop, it can. But it's just, it's choices and standing by it. And yes, all of us can do it cheaper, but cheaper is not the best way.
Absolutely. Because ultimately we want to build good homes.
And it's the same with employees.
Yeah.
I know companies out there that literally have just a bunch of laborers that run around and anybody can install ductwork. But it's that other thing that comes up. I've got guys that can do this or can do that. So yeah, it's picking, it's choosing, and that's what hedges or saves you at the end of the day. Yeah.
You guys are popping off, right?
Oh.
People are sending you all sorts of.
We are electric human
Yeah.
beings.
I have a couple scenario questions. for
Okay.
People, did everybody get on?
Yeah, I had a little bit of time. We're good. Really good.
You're good. Okay. Jeff, this is for you. Another Jeff has a question about if a client keeps changing their requirements during construction, how would you handle these changes while keeping the project on schedule and within budget for your team?
It really depends. If it's a builder changing it, it's because the homeowner's changing it. Generally, pre-solds are much more common. That's going to happen than a spec home. So you have to go. One is generally your custom homes are priced a little bit more just because you know that's going to happen. That closet all of a sudden needs to be this wide and you have a heat run here and you're going to move it. But at the end of the day, we ourselves handle it by just going with the flow because we've worked with the same builder for so long that we don't feel we need to nickel and dime them for everything because this one project went so smooth that you did really well. And this one, okay, it had a few problems, but it really didn't hurt you. So you have to be flexible and willing to let a few things happen without it becoming an emergency.
I think of it like it's our job is, say somebody wants to upgrade to a 90% furnace.
Yeah.
My job as the builder is to call in and be like, okay, what's the cost difference? And then I relay the information to the homeowner.
And we've had some that have been in and we've charged for the upgrade of the furnace, but we haven't charged for the work to replace it. And part of that is after the home is closed, our sticker's on the furnace. Now I can get them in a comfort care plan on. That's a customer of mine. Why let them go? We've got them. So if they, through the construction process, we're like, man, comfort heating just made it so easy. Great. They're going to keep with us.
What's the comfort care plan?
Our comfort care plan is just a maintenance plan that a lot of people sign up on. It's a 2 visits a year. Every spring, we come out, we service the air conditioner, get rid of the cotton and check the drains and make sure the refrigerant levels are all right, change your filters, on and on. And then every fall, we check your ignition systems, adjust gas pressures. There's a lot of things for the heating. And it's designed to keep your systems running at the best efficiency that they can without having an emergency service call, which costs time and a half. So if you're on our comfort care plan, you don't pay emergency and typically you won't have any emergency service calls.
I use it.
Yeah.
And the reason I do it is, right, as a real estate agent, I go to these home inspections and you gotta maintain that stuff.
Yes.
Right?
It's expensive. It's as much as a car.
Yeah.
We have a home being built right now that the HVAC system, okay? People, I'm not talking all sorts of stuff. I'm talking the HVAC system is over $100,000. Okay? Now, the whole house is costing big bucks. But that's $100,000 investment on equipment that some people won't take care of.
And that routine maintenance will just extend the life of that furnace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not very much money.
It's not. It's 278.
I don't want to tell you that so you're rich prices.
No, I'm pretty up on pricing. And we designed it because we figure, honestly, it's self-serving. The comfort care plan is one of those, it's not a lost leader, but it's one of those things that if a person is comfortable and they keep calling us year after year and they get postcards 2 times a year, they're going to be so comfortable with this that the cost of that plan is worth it when it comes time that they're going to get a furnace replacement. They may not even call anybody else.
Plus, it helps you have a great reputation.
You have a
right?
great rapport.
We just had a home inspection on a house. The home inspector called out a bunch of weird stuff on the HVAC. I told the other agent, dude, comfort put it in. Like, what do you think they didn't do it right? She was like, no, you're right.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And then when you go to sell a home and it's got a service record,
Yeah.
and it's going all the way down, and you can see everything that was done in the last 10 years,
It just makes it easy.
it makes it easy. One little thing off the buyer's mind.
Yep.
I think you guys have.
Did you have another question?
I have one more question.
Let's do one more.
And this one I think would maybe relate more to Levi. The question was about how you decide as the builder what you would offer as a standard or an optional upgrade. For they're just listing off any type of typical home system.
So in our normal, we have a best product. So in our mid-level, we do an 80% furnace, air conditioner. What's great about conference bids is their bids will come over and then they'll have 90%, 95%. So we have those upgrades right off the bat. So we offer those to people if they want to upgrade. And we talk about the pros and cons, and a lot of times people will upgrade on our custom homes. So I love having the options and letting the homeowner stack onto that.
They get to decide.
I always tell them, my always go-to lines like, this is the cost of the home. Here's your allowance. And then you can add to that if you want. I don't want to spend your money. You don't want me to spend your money because I got a really nice taste.
Yeah.
But we also will give our clients direct access to these guys. So I'm not the builders, like you have to talk to me.
And I'm more than happy to talk to clients. And many builders, Levi sent them over. They'll sit down at my desk and I'll just tell them exactly what it is. And I can even discuss pricing. That's their job.
I don't know. I'm not the expert. They're the experts. So I always want to refer back to them because I don't want to be misquoted.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't know all the ins and outs. So
And it's one of those things from a heating guy standpoint. That furnace serves you every single day, whether it's heating or cooling. So when you get into those upper level furnaces, you've got better blowers, you've got better whatever. They increase efficiencies of air conditioners. They communicate through the thermostats. They tell you if anything is wrong. That system serves you every single day. Now, what about that light fixture? It's up there on the light. Is there a difference between a $150 can light and an $80 can light? At the end of the day, I don't know. I'm not an electrician. I'm sure he could tell you there is. But for most times there isn't, or a faucet, or whatever. All of us have those upgrades, and that's the hard thing is choosing. And there's really no standard upgrade, but what most of us subs offer our builder is not this huge conglomerate. It's the same 2 or 3 upgrades that make sense on homes. You can have this gas fireplace or this gas fireplace, this or this furnace. And then the homeowners have the best choices within there. And if it's a huge, massive custom home, that's a whole different story.
Yeah. And the 80% is perfectly fine.
They're all the same quality.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you buy an 80% efficient single stage furnace or a 98% efficient modulating furnace. The quality is the same from all builders. It's features and upgrades and comfort and efficiencies. But the quality is still the same. So you're not buying a lesser quality product getting an 80% efficient single stage furnace. It's just maybe you sacrifice some electrical savings or whatever because you really wanted that carpet or those cabinets or something. You only have this much money to spend.
It always comes down to budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
For time's sake here, because this is fun. I can sit here and do this all day.
Me too, honestly.
Last couple of questions. What is the worst advice that you've ever gotten in your business life?
I thought about that since you brought it up earlier. The worst advice that I was ever given is you've got to take control. Because when you are so bound by trying to take control, you're always offending someone. If you try and control your builders, you're screwed. If you try and control the other subs, you're screwed. If you try and control your employees, you're screwed. And at the end of the day, if you try and control your wife or your spouse or your partner, you're screwed. Or your kids. So realistically, you need to be able to work with people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is don't be a control freak in our industries. It does not work.
Absolutely. All right. So just pivoting off that, what's the best advice and who gave it to you?
The best advice was, there's a gentleman named Weldon Long, and y'all should look him up. This guy's pretty phenomenal. He is a 3-time felon, was in prison, on, and right now he owns a house and he eats dinner at the Broadmoor regularly. He's got a garage with 3 Ferraris, 2 G-Wagons. This guy's filthy rich, and he wrote some good books, and he actually had Dale Carnegie forward in one of his books. This is a big guy. His advice was never undervalue yourself. And the story that he told me that made the most sense was, and I don't know if it's real or not, but anyway, there was a nuclear power plant in Russia, and it was about ready to go Chernobyl. And Russia was like, we can't do this again. And they didn't know what to do, and they didn't know what to do. So they hurried up and they called this German engineer that knew all this stuff. And they literally sent a fighter jet, and they flew this guy at twice the speed of sound back to the factory, got him into the basement. He walked in, he says, I need everybody to leave, give me 30 minutes. He went downstairs and literally turned a valve, and everything stabilized. And he sent a bill to the Russian government for $1 million. And they wrote back to him, and they're like, $1 million? You literally turned a valve. He says, I'll correct the invoice. $25, turning the valve. $995,000, whatever, knowing which valve to turn. And the thing is it's the same in my industry. We know what we're doing. We know our products. We have to value ourselves. Yes, every single thing that I do, we charge money, and we have to be okay with that. We have to be fair. But we have to be okay for charging for our services and realizing at the end of the day that it's okay to make money. Okay. And that was my biggest turning point, was realizing that I have a whole crew of people that know what they do and do it the best they can. I'm really good at what I do. Tony's good at what he does. And together we make a team. And every single time we walk into a place, hopefully we enhance that team. And that's why we like working with you, and we like working with realtors like Cozy. Honest, because they know what they do. And if we all value ourselves, it's going to be a much better business culture, because you're not always in stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you are, like the times that we get to 105 and it's Saturday afternoon and people, they're having barbecue or whatever, you know, that $500 bill to turn the AC back on,
Yes.
doesn't look so bad.
It doesn't.
Right.
And people have asked us that. You weren't here but this amount of time. And it's like, but we knew what we were doing. I hired a gentleman that put time and money into school. He has a van with parts. He has tools. He has this whole business structure behind him. He got up at 11 o'clock at night, came up to your house and fixed your system that you couldn't do. So yes, we're charging $185, and we're not sorry.
Absolutely not. All right, last question. So Cozy and I have an ongoing debate. We chatted about this earlier. So do you love to win or hate to lose more? And the reason we ask this is Cozy likes to win, and I hate to lose more, and we debate about this quite often.
Yes. And I've literally been thinking about this one for a long time. And the honest answer is I hate to lose. Because losing implies so many different things. I think if I don't lose, I won. The fact of the matter is, going on an estimate and having a customer that's giving 3 other estimates and not getting selected for the job wasn't losing. But walking into a person's house and have them not select me because of a bad review or something is where I lost. And I hate to lose. I hate having anything like that affected. I hate getting a phone call because my guy was a little belligerent in the bank. Why did they know he was my guy? Because he was wearing my shirt. I hate to lose. So I tell the guy, hey, calm it down. Same with my family. I work hard. I have 3 daughters. And it's a win to see them what they're doing. And I hate to lose when I let them down. And I look in their face or whatever. My wife, my brother, whatever. Yes, I hate to lose.
I like that, sir.
Yeah.
I hate to lose just because I'm an ass.
Sometimes it's good to get there too. I do like poker, and I do hate to lose.
Right.
And I'll do everything I can to take your money. I like you. We can talk.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming, Jeff. Where can everybody find you on social media?
We are on Instagram at Comfort Heating. Those of you who are watching my live or Levi's live here, I am the friendly heating guy. And I have a YouTube channel for Comfort Heating. And also I have a little Twitter and Facebook. So pretty much got it covered all the way around.
I love it. So I'm Levi_Warner on Instagram. Haley, what is my TikTok. Mom's MT, and I think Levi Warner.
Levi Warner.
Yeah, WANNER.
And everything will be linked in the bio.
Everybody will be linked in the bio. Appreciate you being here. This was a lot of fun.
I appreciate the homies with the stogies. This was,
We're gonna make t-shirts.
yeah.
Yes.
This is fun. Comfort's our first official. They don't know a sponsor because they gave us a great deal on the exhaust fan and the ionizers. We're gonna shout them out on every Homies with the Stogie.
I might find some more things to set here.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks again.
Thanks, Levi. Thanks, everybody.